Today, I'm going to share again some tips that might be really helpful when it comes to just editing, tweaking your videos that you might use in announcements. Perhaps you might use them as how-to videos, or maybe even a mini lecture in your class. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump right into it. I am going to today be using a software platform called Video Editor. And the reason why I chose this one is simply because it is free and available to us in Microsoft 10. So I wanted to use something that everybody has access to. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're going to be using a Video Editor. Now you can see here, I don't use this tool very often. So much like you, I'm kind of learning as I go. I actually use a different software tool that is through Adobe. And I'm going to share with you some of those resources there in the chat. Essentially, though, this is a real quick, easy, user-friendly platform to use. So again, that's why I'm going to use it to create the video project for today. First and foremost, again, just start by creating a new video. And in this case, we can name this one perhaps part 2, since this is the second. Or actually, I should name this part 1, since we're editing that first segment that we had done last time. And you can always change the names that you create for your videos, but essentially this will be what we'll be working with for our time together today. Now, your first step is going to be to add the different video clips that you would like to use within your video collaboration. So go ahead and click on the add. And in this case, I'm going to add them from my PC because I've already saved them. Alex was so kind to send me the raw clip from last part 1. And I also want to include an intro to that video. So I found a flying eagle that will be our introduction. And maybe I want to close with a logo. So I can add those to my storyboard. Now, when it comes to the storyboard, keep in mind that a storyboard is basically the journey that you're having your viewers experience from the beginning of the video to the end. So if you're creating a brand new video, you might want to take some time to think through, what do you want to include in terms of content? What do you want to include in terms of the background and imagery and things like that? So Alex, if you could share, I'm going to include a document that will kind of be a template for storyboarding out a video. Feel free to use that as you work through your video. In this particular case, we've already done the content. So essentially, it's more or less just editing the video that we already created. So the storyboard here is the lineup of the order in which these video clips will appear. So I'm going to reorder them. I'm actually going to place the flying eagle first, followed by our part 1 video where we talked about the 10 different tips. And then I'm going to close with a logo. Again, just reorder is just simply moving around on your storyboard. Now, when it comes to logos, I should mention this because, again, marketing just happens to be kind of my second world as well. And that is the university has some really good guidelines when it comes to branding, both in terms of logo use, in terms of color and things of that nature. So Alex, if you want to share in the chat the direct link to university standards when it comes to branding. Also in there, you'll find all the current logos. So you can always be assured that you are using current logos and branding in any of the assets that you create. In this case, again, we're going to include that logo there at the end, and I'll talk a little bit more about images in our videos a little bit later. Okay. So again, a couple of quick steps. We just added our assets into the library. We pulled them down into the storyboard. We reordered them. Now, one of the next things that you'll probably want to do, and in fact, I do this with most of my videos. Why? Because typically at the beginning of a video, you're adjusting the camera. At the beginning of an event, typically there's that opening banter dialogue where I talk about my dog before the video went live. So you might want to take out those kind of introductory elements and just really get right to the point of the event, or in this case, the video. Same thing with the ending. You might want to clip or trim the video to exclude anything at the end. So I'll show you how to do that. It's very simple. Essentially just click on the clip that you would like to trim in this case, and then click on the trim button. Now here, essentially you're going to have a few different tools. And I should say this, most software platforms, when it comes to editing, have similar capabilities. They might just be phrased differently, referenced differently, but typically they will have similar features. Some more, again, user-friendly than others. In this case, this one's pretty straightforward. So in order to find the part in which I want to start the trim, I'm just going to go ahead and simply play the video, and I'll decide on the stopping point or the pause point to trim that intro. Let's go ahead and play it.
All right, y'all. Yes, she does, Shelley. Welcome, everyone. I have noon Eastern on the nose.
Okay, so right about there, and I've already watched through this video, so I kind of know in advance where I'd like to start and stop the video. But in this particular case, that's typically how I would find that point, is just by replaying and listening to where I'd actually like the video to start. So again, I just simply paused the video at that point, and then I can move the trim right to that point in the video. So essentially it's going to start, if I start the trim here, it'll start right at the point in which I want the event to kick off. And same thing with the close. Again, I'm just going to adjust the back end of this, and I'm going to take it down to, I took some notes ahead of time, so I'm kind of cheating a little bit. But I'm going to take it down to about the 29 mark. And if we want to see exactly that that's the right point, you can just move this slider at any point through the presentation to get to the point in which you actually want to pause. If you want to double check that that's about right, we could
know about part 2 of Rachel's session. It will be about editing videos, and it will be from noon to 12:30 Eastern on December 1st.
Okay, so that's exactly the point that I really wanted to close by just ending with that secondary date of December 1st, which happens to be today. And we're talking about the editing feature. So all of this extra content, I'm going to exclude from this particular video series. So essentially, we're just hearing the main components of the session. Okay, so I've chosen my start point, I've chosen my end point, and all I need to do now is select done. And you can see we've already shrunk the main video asset or main video clip to less than 30 minutes, which is referenced here. Okay, so essentially that's going to be the trim feature. Now, the next thing that I want to show you is how to split a video. So in this case, again, it's a 30-minute video, and it just so happens to be that in order to add text into each of the video clips, they have to be unique segments. So if you remember or you watched part 1, there was 10 different tips that I shared. So if I wanted to add in those text elements, I would have to clip this 30-minute video into the 10 different segments. So I can show you quickly how to do that. Again, relatively straightforward and easy. I'm going to click on the clip that I want to, in this case, split, and it'll take us to a similar screen that we had just referenced before. Here again is the start, finish at 29 minutes. I'm going to take my pin back to the beginning, and this pin will tell us where we want to split the video. So in this particular case, I had an introduction, and I'm going to look at my notes again to remind myself where that tip number 1 started. And it was about at 2 minutes and 56 seconds. So I can just take my slider and move it to that point. Again, if you didn't have that reference point ahead of time, you could just simply click at any one point, start playing, and you would be able to tell at what point the video needed to be split. And I said at this point it was about 2:56. So right about there. Now again, to the viewer, once this video is compiled, there will be no difference between each of these pieces. They'll just flow together. Essentially what we're doing is we're taking that 29-minute video clip, we're splitting at this mark. So if you click done, you'll see that now we've created essentially a 3-minute introduction clip. And then I can do the same thing subsequently for the 10 different tips that we created in the part 1 video. Now, what I will say about this is, I'm not going to do all 10, obviously, but let's go ahead and do a couple more just so we can have some clips from which to add some text elements. So let's go ahead and take that 20-minute clip now, and let's go ahead and split it again. And again, I'm just going to find that starting point for tip number 2. And if I look at my notes, it was about at the 3-minute mark. So I'm going to move the, again, the little pin to that split at this point by clicking done. And when we see this, now we have 3 different clips. Essentially, this is the introduction. Here's going to be tip number 1. And then again, all the subsequent tips would follow in this now 32-minute clip. And you could just continue to do that, with each of the clipping elements that you needed to, splitting elements that you needed to split out. In this case, again, we're just going to leave it at this since I showed you that split feature. The next thing that I wanted to share with you was about how to add text. So again, some basic features in the video software, editing software that we're using here allows for us to add that text directly into the video component. So let's go ahead and try that and see what it happens to look like. In order to do so, just find the clip that you'd like to add the text to, click on it, and then add text. So here we've got a few options when it comes to text. This is the area in the top right-hand corner where you're going to add in the text content. In this case, I'm going to add just a summary of what the tip number 1 was, which is all about lighting, if anyone remembers. And so I'm going to add in a comment there. And you can see that I've got a couple of options when it comes to different animation with this text in this particular software package. I'm going to go ahead and click Classic. And as you can see, it enters it right on the bottom as default. Now, if you remember, we used 2 different videos in part 1. And so this empty chair is open there for a good portion of the first part of the discussion while I was doing some very poor lighting background. So what I might want to do is actually switch the placement of this text to be placed right over the chair. So I can do that by clicking left, and it just kind of blurs that out, which I kind of like. And so I think I'm going to leave that there. And what I might even want to do is have that, covering that chair until I sit in it. So I can actually change the duration in which that text stays on the screen. And so I'm going to move it to about the 37 mark. And that's about where I get positioned. So right about there. And I can move that text all the way over through that entire duration. So essentially, if I move my pin back, you can see how that might look. And here again. The one thing about editing videos is sometimes you do have to be patient, especially as it's kind of thinking through all the different changes that you just made. Essentially, if you saw that there momentarily, however, though, as I moved the pin back, that text was overlaid over the image until the slider was moved here, and then it will disappear once I take a seat in the chair. Let's use another one. Let's go ahead and do one more. We can put some text over the tip number 2. So again, this was the beginning of that video asset. I can go ahead and click on the text. And in this case, tip number 2 is all about the background. So let's go ahead and give it a definition there. And instead of maybe putting it on the side, since I have the 2 here that I want to feature, I'm going to go ahead and switch this one and put it on the bottom. And we'll make it, we won't run it out as long for this one, maybe just a few short seconds at the beginning of this particular video. So again, you can change the location of that tip. In this case, I'm going to put it on the bottom. and click done. Okay, so essentially we have done the trim to the video. We've split out the video in 3 different sections. Could be more, but in this case, we're going to stop at 3. And then we've added the text feature to, again, the first 2 tips in this series. So those are some basic editing features that are offered via this particular platform. Now, there are some other features that are more so applicable to images. So there's a motion option. You can add in 3D effects and some filters that change the appearance of the different images that you are using in your video. We don't have time to go through each of those today, but again, feel free to play around with them at your convenience. Another nice feature of video that you might want to incorporate into your assets is to include sound. So this tool does allow us to add sound. A few different best practices that I'll share is that find one that seems to work with the tone or the nature of the video that you're creating. In this particular one, I might want to use this feature. You just simply click it and click done. Now, again, this platform has some limitations. It's going to play the video, or I'm sorry, it's going to play the sound clip throughout the entire duration of your video. So just know that, especially if you're speaking, you want to make sure that the sound is at the appropriate level. So let's see what this might look like when we have this all put together. Essentially, I'm going to take my pin back to the beginning, and let's go ahead and play it and see what it sounds like. Okay, so nice, intro, gets everyone upbeat, what have you, but definitely too loud. In fact, it's probably going to be overbearing to those that are speaking. So I'll probably want to take the volume down to approximately maybe the 40 mark. Now, Alex, if you want to share in the chat, there are some decibel ranges that are ideal when it comes to post-production on video. This particular software package doesn't have that ability to see and to adjust ranges, as I said before, there are some limitations to it. But that being said, again, if you use, whether it's Adobe Premiere Pro or Final Cut, they do have some additional features in there which allow you to adjust audio levels. A little bit more advanced for what we're going to share today, but nonetheless, again, know that that is an important element of the video editing process, is making sure that the sound quality is ideal. So music does offer a nice touch, just make sure it's not overbearing to the message that you're ultimately trying to deliver. Those are some basic features that I've wanted to share with you when it comes to this particular software package. Now, once you're satisfied with, again, the different elements that you built into the video, what you can then do is just go ahead and click Finish Video, and that will save it to the designated place on your computer that you would like to save that particular video. Now, from there, there's just a couple more things that I would like to share with you since we have just a few more minutes. And what I wanted to share with you, especially since we're faculty teaching in the classroom, is once you've created that video, what I highly suggest is that you create a Canvas studio collection. And this is a place where you can house all your videos. And as you can see here, kind of manage them in an easy to use format, so that when you're in your different courses, you can easily, because again, Studio is a Canvas product, link them directly into your course. And especially this is important when you're creating videos that can be applicable to multiple different classes. So to add a video to the Studio collection, it's easy. Again, just hit this add button in the top right-hand corner of the Studio collection. And from there, here's an example of the video that I've already loaded. So to choose a new thumbnail, again, all I did was click the double threes and replace thumbnail. Here we're going to find a better choice. I've got one here in video tips. And now we have a new thumbnail that's going to be a little bit more applicable to what the video really is all about. To change the title, again, you can click on the name, you can click on details and edit details, and this is going to be part 1. There. And if you wanted, you could add tags as well as a description. I won't do it for the sake of today and time, but know that those features are available, and then simply click save. And then the very last thing that I wanted to show you with Canvas Studio was captioning, and that's to make sure that we have video assets that are accessible to all of our stakeholders. Captions are relatively easy in Studio. In fact, I'll share or have Alex share a little tip sheet on how to create captions. But again, in Studio, it's relatively easy. All you do is hit the caption section. You can choose what type of language you want the captions to appear in. In this case, I'm going to select English, and then just simply hit request. It does take a minute for these captions to become available, but once they do, I do suggest that you take a moment and review them, make sure that they're accurate. It's about 85% accurate in Canvas Studio, but it might miss some words here and there. So just take a moment and make sure that it's reflecting the words that you're actually speaking. And then again, you can hit save, and your videos are both production quality as well as accessible, which is a great feature of Canvas Studio.